Hello everyone, I am actor Casey Lloyd with Crit Till Dawn, and this is a tutorial for my players on Fantasy Grounds Unity and how to set up a character for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. If you're not one of my players, you should still get a lot out of this tutorial, and we're going to start talking about how to join a campaign, then go into character creation, and finish the tutorial on how to level up your character. So let's get started. All right, so this is the screen that you're going to see once you've downloaded the software. You're going to go ahead and click Join Campaign. For my players, because I'm playing a cloud game, all you're going to do is put in my GM name here and press Start. If you're a player, say you're sitting around the living room table with a whole bunch of other friends and everyone's using Fantasy Grounds and you're doing a LAN party, then you can go ahead and put in their IP address and click Start. So here we are at the virtual tabletop. This particular skin and how this looks is based on my personal preferences I chose. Your individual game masters, if you're playing with someone else, your tabletop might look slightly different. So this campaign setup screen, this screen pops up every time on load, unless if you tell it not to. It gives you the user manuals, the forums. It's easy stuff that you can get from the Fantasy Grounds website. So I click this so it never pops up again. And each one of these boxes is kind of like a web browser window. You can drag, you can resize, and you can close them out with an X. Okay, so here's the character selection screen. This is the first screen that you'll see. To start a new character, just go ahead and press this green plus. And here we go. This is our character sheet right here. So it's got your essentials on the first page of your character sheet. You got your ability scores, you got your armor class, you got your saving throws, race, background, class, all that jazz. All these other tabs open up other parts of your character sheet. So we're going to click and go into here's your skills. You've got your abilities given to you by your race and your class. You've got your inventory. We don't have anything yet, but we're going to add stuff in there. And then you've got, this is where you're going to put your treasure, gold pieces and all that stuff. And this is how much you're carrying as far as weight goes. You've got your notes as far as your character's identity goes. This log is related to Adventurers League. You don't have to worry about that. And then we've got actions. Once we put in a weapon or a spell, which I'll show you guys, this will pop up and this will be useful for combat. Okay, I can go ahead and close out the character selection screen. So the first thing that you want to do after bringing up a character sheet within Fantasy Grounds is you want to load the modules. You have to tell Fantasy Grounds what books do you want to reference during your game. And everybody has to do this. So you go down here to the library and click library. That opens up your library screen. Here's something I want you to note. You can resize any of these screens and you can put them somewhere else. And whenever you close them and reopen them, it'll actually pop back up in that same spot in the same size. So something to keep in mind for organizing your tabletop. Over here, these particular buttons are actually not lined up right now for character creation. And so I'm going to change those. I'm going to click this Create PC and boom, now I've got classes, feats, items, all the things I need for character creation. Once you go back into play mode, you can go over here and click play. And now you get different things like stories, items. And if you ever want to add or subtract any of these buttons, you can go ahead and toggle them. So now I've added encounters just by clicking one of these. Okay, so like I said, we have to load up the modules. So go ahead and click modules down here in the lower left. And these will be, you'll see the modules that are available to you from your GM. I've actually already unloaded a couple, so I'm just going to unload a couple more. Let's do the Sword Coast Adventurers Guide. So to unload a book, you're just going to, or to load a book rather, you're going to click load and the book will open. And for you players, you'll actually only see things labeled players. The book that I just unloaded or loaded is actually for myself, the GM. Okay, once you're all done with loading the modules, go ahead and close out of that window. I'm going to stay here on the library for 1 second because I'm going to pull up a couple things that I like to have for player creation. We're going to open up the player's handbook and we're going to go to the reference manual. So now anytime you see one of these cubes, or again, it might be different in depending on your skin, you can drag and drop one of those cubes and open up the window. You can also just click it as a link and it'll pop up. I'm going to drag and drop the reference manual down here into what's called a hotkey. And if you press Alt, if you press Control, if you press Shift, you get a whole slew of different hotkeys. There's so many that you probably won't even need them all, but just know that they're there. So I'm going to bring the reference manual down there. I'm actually going to open up the reference manual and pull out a couple other things. So click on D&D Player's Handbook, and now you get the entire Player's Handbook. This is really handy to have as a hotkey. I highly recommend. You don't have to do these other things that I do for this, but at least have the reference manual so you can check on different rulings as a player. Okay, so let's see. I want to open up character creation. I want to go beyond first level because, again, at the end of this, I'm going to show you guys how to level up your character. I want to go to Chapter 4, Personality and Background. I like to have the languages up when I'm creating a character. I'm going to put that there. I also like to have the equipment. And if I go into weapons, I can pull up the weapons table. And by the way, so I'm scrolling using my mouse wheel, but you can also click and drag this to go up and down one of these screens. I'm also going to go into armor and pull up the armor shield, or the armor table. I'll show you guys why I do this once we get there. Okay, you can close out of the reference manual, close out of your library, and now we are on to character creation. So this is the fun part. Grab your favorite beverage, 2 maybe if you want, and we're going to start the character creation part. Have fun with this, guys, and really enjoy. Pick out who it is that you're going to create. Oh, my buttons have changed for some reason. I'm going to go back to my library. Click that, create PC. Okay. So in Fantasy Grounds, we're going to create our character slightly backwards than the standard paper and pencil book edition does. So they stay, in the book, start with your race and then look at your class. Then you do your ability score modifiers and then do all the background stuff. In Fantasy Grounds, we want to do it starting with the ability scores. And then we're going to go to backgrounds, and then we're going to go into race and class. The reason for this is to add onto your character sheet. It's just simple drag and drop type things. However, when you add something to your character sheet, the character sheet doesn't know if something's a duplicate, nor does it notify you if something is a duplicate. And so when let's just say I'll start with a charlatan. When I do my backgrounds, and don't ever forget your background because you get cool things like you get different skills. So the background forces you to get these particular skills, right? So if I add this, and then let's say I start with, so I get deception, sleight of hand. Let's say I start with a rogue class, and I wanted to choose the skills deception and sleight of hand, but I didn't know I forgot that this particular background gets these. Then there'd be duplicates and I lose out on these 2 skills. I basically, instead of having 4 skills, different skills, I'd have 2. And nothing would notify me of that. So that's why we're going to start kind of backwards. All right. So here's the part where I want you to go through the classes, go through the races, go through the backgrounds, read these different descriptions of characters that you might want to be, and open up all these. You can open up tables. There's images for some of these characters. Check everything out. Really decide who it is that you want to be first before we add anything to the character sheet. So take a moment, pause this video, have fun. Again, get your favorite beverages and snacks and go through the classes and decide who it is that you really want to be. And then we're going to start creating our character. And welcome back. All right, let's do this. So again, I want to start out with my ability scores. I'm actually just leave the backgrounds there first. My preference for ability scores is I like to do the roll six scores. So I'm going to pick up this D6, and I did that with a left click. These are my dice down here, and I'm going to right click 3 more times. Each time I right click, it adds another dice. I'm going to put this into a hotkey down here, and then to use that hotkey, I'm just going to click it. I'm going to click it 6 times for my 6 different abilities. Oh. All right. I think I messed with my sound settings. There should actually be dice sounds with this one because this is Fantasy Grounds Unity, which is pretty cool. You just aren't hearing them, unfortunately. Okay, so we've got our 6 scores, and if you click one of these ability scores, you just get a very faint outline. So if you're not familiar with this type of ability score session or setup, you're going to roll 46 6 times and remove the lowest score. You can also do the point array, which I believe in the player's handbook is 15, 14, 13, 12, 10, 8, or there's a 27 point buy. Go ahead and ask your GM if they're okay with a 27 point buy. So I'm just going to start entering in these scores from top to bottom. Of course, I would actually choose these differently if I was actually creating this character. I'm just showing for your example. I'll just do one more. So you just click and enter in, whatever, 6, change that one instead of Constitution. But you notice that my armor class changed. It changes things like your ability score modifiers once you update these boxes. There you go. Okay. So go through all of that. And again, we're going to go start with our background after we've gotten our ability scores. So let's stick with Charlatan. So all I'm going to do for Charlatan is I'm going to click the cube and drag it over to background. Boom. I already get features added to my abilities. False identity is placed in my abilities. I get those skills we mentioned earlier. Deception and sleight of hand, I'm now proficient in. And I'm proficient in Disguise Kit and Forgery Kit. So with Fantasy Grounds, it's like 50-50. You have to add certain things manually, but other things it'll add by itself. So make sure that you're not missing anything. Every single line of your character sheet should be filled out by the end of this. So, and let's just take a look at our inventory real quick. So with the Charlatan, I get particular equipment. To put in equipment, right now, obviously, I have to add this myself. I'm going to click Items. Wait for it to load. I can be done with this background screen. And the Items has a cool search feature. So you're going to use this search bar, and you're going to search for different items that you need to put in your equipment. Now check this out. I already know that fine clothes is actually not spelt that way in the directory. And if you don't spell it exact, it won't be found in the directory. So it's better to be generic than to be super specific about what you're searching for. So I'm just going to search clothes instead of fine clothes. And boom, there we go. I get different sets of clothes. There's my clothes, comma, fine. I'm going to add that to my equipment. Drag and drop. Boom. It weighs 6 pounds or whatever the unit weight of in D&D is. I'm not sure what that is off the top of my head. I know some of these things aren't going to be found in the items directory, so I'm going to have to add them manually. I think cards is one of them. Let's check out cards. Okay, perfect. There's no cards. So how do I get this deck of marked cards into my equipment? Well, you're going to click after the last word of the equipment in there in the name and hit enter, and it gives you a brand new line. So now I can just type in marked cards. And that's not far enough though. Just adding a name is not far enough. I'm going to add some additional detail. So I'm going to click this cube here. And traditionally you actually wouldn't see this at the start. This will probably be locked. And this is all you'll see is a gray box. There might be some description based on what you add, but most likely you're going to have to unlock this first. If I actually click the name, there we go. The name shows up now. And I can add a description down here. Gambling cards I won. And then you always want to add a weight. You know, everything should have a weight. Let's say these are 0.25. Okay, I've got all my description in there. I'm going to lock that down. There we go. Gambling cards, I have a description, I have a weight. I can close that out. I made sure to lock it again so I don't screw up editing it in the future. I make sure that I have to unlock it. There it is. And again, to check out that description, I'm just click that cube. All right. So that's how to add equipment manually. So go ahead and make sure that you add all of your equipment for your background, add all your equipment for your classes. Make sure, again, that every single line of your character sheet is filled out. So let's just do this real quick. I'm not going to go through each one of these and actually build a full character. I'm just going to show you how to do it. So let's open up class. Let's open up race. And I'm going to start with race first before I do my class. I'm going to go back to my main tab. And let's do a dwarf. One thing to notice that your DM might have different books available to you. So you got the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide here, and you got the Player's Handbook. Within each of these books, these dwarfs are actually slightly different. If you click this other tab, it'll show you your sub-races and traits. And notice that in the Player's Handbook, I get the standard Hill Dwarf and Mountain Dwarf, but in the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide, I get Gold Dwarf, Gray Dwarf, all that. And so as I'm deciding, that moment when we took a pause and actually deciding on my character, I can go through and kind of read these different things about which subrace I want. So just be aware of that you might have actual other subraces and classes that you might not know about based on what books are offered. So let's be a dwarf. I'm just going to drag this dwarf up to my race. And there we go. It's going to ask me about which subrace I want to be. Let's stick with that gold dwarf. I'm going to click that little toggle button, click the check. Boom. Now I get all this stuff added. I get Dwarven Resilience, I get Stone Cunning, and it says I get added traits like size. That, again, if I go to my notes, I'm going to have to actually put, well, okay, it puts in size medium, but I'm still going to have to add all this stuff manually. And these are like text documents. So you can just say, hey, I met a tiefling yesterday. And it's very simple. Type it in, and if I want a new line, press enter, and then you can just delete a line too and just use backspace. Very much like a standard text document, which is pretty awesome. Okay, so I've added my dwarf. Let's add a class, shall we? Let's do sorcerer. I'm gonna put sorcerer in there. Bing, bam, boom. This is where I get to choose my skills. Let's say I want Arcana and Religion. I think, remember, in my background, you do have to kind of keep this in your head, but I think it was Deception and Sleight of Hand that I already got. So that way, not duplicating my skills. I'm going to choose Storm Sorcery. Bing, bam, boom. So I'm on my way to almost having a full-blown character. There's a couple things that I didn't do, actually. I'm going to close this up. I have not added important stuff. I haven't added all of this, obviously, as I'm going really fast, but I want to add my equipment just so I can show you guys how that works. Okay, here's the equipment available to a sorcerer. So I can either look up light crossbow and any simple weapon in the items menu, but then I'm going to have to go one by one. I'm going to have to make sure I type in the right name in the directory, or I can use the weapons table that I put in my hotkey before. Boom, it's already ready there. So now I can actually look at what the crossbow does along with all the simple melee weapons and kind of make an educated choice just by looking at one document. You know what? Let's stick with that crossbow light. I'm going to, move that for a second, get to my inventory, move that crossbow, drag and drop into my equipment. Boom. Now I have a weapon. Let's add a piece of armor as well. Not entirely sure that the sorcerer is proficient in with any particular armor. Let's see. Armor, none. Yeah, so this wouldn't be correct for a sorcerer, but let's just do it anyways. So we're I'm gonna add a chain shirt, and then I'm gonna add, let's do plate armor. So look at it. It's updated my current encumbrance, but here's something that you want to be aware of. When you're doing armor, if you click this, this means it's equipped, which doesn't really, oh, okay. So right now I have my chain shirt equipped, but my plate is not, because it would show this shirt. So if I go ahead and check this out, my armor class is raised because of that chainmail. If I wanted to change that, I'd click that, and now I'd put on my plate. Boom. So make sure when you're playing the game that you're equipping the right items. When I go into my actions, now I have that light crossbow. So this will be handy come combat time, and I'll make another video on combat. But that's how you get your weapons in there, is you just add them to your inventory. And you'd also do that same thing with spells. Let's go spells real quick. Cool thing about the spells directory is it has a search feature as well. So I decided to be a sorcerer, so I can go and look at only the spells that are available to a sorcerer by using the source down here. Taking my system a second. And I can also choose the level of spell, so I don't have to look at everything. I can look at level 0 means cantrips, then level 1, 2, 3 appropriately. Let's just say I wanted a couple cantrips. I'm going to drag and drop these into my spell slot, just like I would equipment. Chill touch. Boom. There I have some spells. Up here it shows your spell slots, and then you can mark them off once you've used a spell. And that's pretty much everything you need to know as far as character creation. Obviously, I didn't fully create a full character. You guys have to make sure that you get everything in there yourselves. But, oh, there is one more thing. Let's click this upper left box. This is your portrait. Then you go ahead and you'll see some bags. Go ahead and click into a bag. And these are the offerings that your GM has as far as portraits go. So let's just go into D&D 5e. One of these is a dwarf. There's a dwarf. And then I'm just going to double click. And boom. Now I have a portrait for my character. On this other right hand side, this is your token. So this is what's going to be used for the game board. Let's say I don't want my token to be my portrait. I can actually go down and check out what assets my GM has. And so right now we're on tokens. There's portraits, there's images. These can actually be manually loaded if you wanted to bring in your own character portrait. I might just do a separate video on that specifically. Let's say I like Pogs. Pogs remind me of the old school miniatures. Sorry, double click into that. Now I have Pogs. Let's just do this dwarf. This guy kind of looks the same. So now I have a token for my game board and I have a portrait. Boom. Let me show you one more fun thing real quick before we get into leveling up your character. Click this paint palette up in the upper right, and you can change the color of your dice. So let's say I want to add a lot more blue. I want to make the dice darker. I want to change the color of the text from black to white. You can have plenty of fun. Change the color of your dice. All right, so we've created a character. Now we want to level them up. We're playing the game and we get to level 2, we get to level 3, and it's go time. It's that character building time. Click this magnifying glass. This opens up your class and level box. All right. So check it out. The weird thing is, I currently have no XP because I haven't been playing, but this will update automatically once your DM, once you go through some combats, once you go through some quests, you'll get XP. Don't ever adjust this. This will take care of itself. You don't have to touch it. This, you do have to manually change. The system doesn't know how to do that. I'm guessing there's probably lots of logic behind there. So that's why I have this beyond first level in my hotkeys so I can always remind myself. So the XP I need for second level is 300, so I'm just going to put that in there. And then you will have to check back your XP from time to time and just be like, all right, where am I? Am I almost to level 2? And every time you level up, you'll just have to update that again to the next level. Okay, the final thing is how to actually level up the character. You're going to take this cube right here, and I'm going to drag and drop. Boom, I'm level 2. Now, Fantasy Grounds does acknowledge multi-classing, so if I had another class, I'd be Sorcerer and like Bard right here, and depending on which class I wanted to level up in that multi-class, I'd use that particular cube. And now I've added things like Tempestuous Magic, and that's pretty much it. You do want to keep track of things like when you need to update a ability score modifier. When you get new skills, it'll give you that option. Again, you know, one of the reasons why I put languages down here too is often those classes will be like, you get to choose 2 new languages. So that's actually in my abilities. No, that's in my, where is languages? Did I just skip it? Dun, dun, dun. Oh, there we go. It's at the bottom of abilities. So I got 2 for being a dwarf, but I think most backgrounds or classes give you additional. So then, again, just text document, press behind the name, hit enter. I can type in something else. That's it, guys. Drag, drop, enter manually, typing, clicking X's, and now you have a character. Now the real fun begins with the actual game. I hope you found this tutorial interesting and informative. If you are interested in my games, go ahead and go to Crit Till Dawn's website at crittd.com. And I will be posting this on YouTube. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give it a like, subscribe, all that jazz. And I will see you guys next time. Take care.